Hello, one and all. Welcome back to the No Name Cinema Society. It is Thursday, May 24th, 2018, and you have reached our classic, the most popular of our set of episodes. And tonight, we're going to discuss Terry Gilliam's 1985 film, Brazil. One thing that I kind of think is fun is the last time we did a classic, about a month ago, we did Mrs. Miniver. One of our co-hosts came to us live from the country Brazil, and now we're doing the movie Brazil, and this is very exciting. I love that little connection. I might be the only one. Speaking of co-hosts, let me introduce you to the ones that we've got with me tonight. First, the bored, lonely everyman trapped in a dystopian future, Drunk Davey is with us. Hey, Davey.
Hi.
Where are you these days?
I'm in Jacksonville, Florida.
Jacksonville? Are you a Jaguar?
For one night.
Oh, wow. Globe-trotting, country-trotting, Drunk Davey. And our other co-host, ladies and gentlemen, is the guy that will fix your air conditioning if you need it. Alex Evans is back. Hi, Alex. Can you install air conditioning in my apartment?
I could probably figure it out.
That's the kind of thing you want to hear. So
I'd probably invest as much time in trying to research it as Robert De Niro over-researched this role.
All right.
So there's an early maybe hint of Alex's thoughts on the movie. I'm the only one that's drinking here tonight. Davey, of course, drinks all the time, but he won't do it on the show unless we get enough subscribers. I, however, am shameless and will drink whenever. I've got a new beer I'm going to try right here in front of you. I don't know if Davey's had it. It's called Fathom IPA. Have you had this, Davey?
No.
Do you want to?
Sure.
Okay. Well,
save one for me.
Let's see. It's good. I mean, it's IPA-ish, which is what I like. Good enough. Which leads us to, ladies and gentlemen, the schedule for this, our 48th series of episodes, which started about a week ago. This past Monday, our Indie Spotlight was the film Afternoon Delight, directed by Jill Soloway. Tonight, we do Terry Gilliam's Brazil. We do our 30-second sound off. We're going to have a special announcement. Jim is going to be back, and we're going to do some recastings of some of the 1942 films, and I'm supposed to do my top 5 films from female directors. That's something to look forward to. So now it's time for the trivia tidbit. And if you watched the last episode, you know that I said that our classic for tonight got its title from a song from 1942. Now, though the film doesn't use the 1942 version, the original Aquarela do Brasil was written in 1938 in Brazil. An American version, however, hit the pop charts in our year of 1942, recorded by Jimmy Dorsey's orchestra with vocals by Bob Everly and Helen O'Connell.
Brazil, where hearts were entertaining June, we stood beneath an amber moon and softly murmured someday soon we'd kiss and clung together.
You do everything to get our videos flagged, man. Everything.
You need to have the proper paperwork.
76 years, isn't that past the public domain time for music?
I was making a Brazil joke.
I didn't hear you. What did you say?
I said
the proper paperwork.
That song, you need the proper paperwork.
And that's a good segue for the summary. Going straight to the summary. So Brazil, an unexpected typographical error at the government agency called the Ministry leads to the arrest and subsequent accidental death of a cobbler called Archibald Buttle. Sam Lowry is a government employee who is assigned to rectify the error somehow, which sets off a chain of events that allows Sam to unravel the extreme bureaucracy and corruption at the government for which he has worked loyally for years. That's the summary, gentlemen. How do we feel about the summary?
Sounds pretty good.
Excellent.
I was a little nervous because I did not rewatch the movie for tonight. I watched it recently enough that I felt like I didn't need to, but I wasn't sure if I got all what I needed to get into the summary. So it's time for opening thoughts. Getting straight to it, guys. Moving right along. All right, opening thoughts, Censor 2. Initial thoughts about the film. Davey.
Yeah, I watched it today, and unlike you, I already feel like I need to see it again.
And so where does that put us on the Davey scale?
Yeah, confused.
a new entry Davey scale. And you'd never seen it before, right?
No.
Had you seen other Terry Gilliam in the past, aside from 12 Monkeys?
Time Bandits.
Time Bandits. Okay, there you go. That's something. All right, now, Alex, opening thoughts.
Well, my favorite novel is The Trial by Franz Kafka, so I love this film.
Now, I screened the film twice over the past 6 years or so. The first time was September 27th, 2012, in which we had a group go to a screening that was held by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. I don't know, Alex, if you know that theater, the Samuel Golden Theater on Wilshire. It's a very fancy, cool theater.
Past it, but a young worker like me has never been invited to such fancy
It's not for below the liners. That was in September 2012, and there was a special guest. Catherine Hellman spoke after the screening in a little Q&A. Recently, we had a screening also in LA with different people on the west side of LA on November 24th of 2017, so just a few months ago. And I did not rewatch it because it was just this past November, 6 months ago or so, and I took enough notes that I felt I could manage through tonight. But we'll see. We'll see if I needed to rewatch it. The groups that I screened it for had mixed emotions, verging between confused and enthralled. So it's almost like Davey and Alex represent both sides of that coin tonight. So that'll be interesting. In terms of my thoughts, my opening thoughts, I think it's a masterpiece of world building and allegorical satire, but lacking the fundamental narrative elements. And that is that probably it splits the line between Alex and Davey in just that way. But I do want to start with the good points as we tend to do, and I want to talk about the direction. And the first thing I want to talk about is the use of mise-en-scène, which we talk about every now and then. I mean, I think the level of detail in the world he's created is extraordinary. There's so many choices; it's almost overwhelming. In terms of the world building, he seems to have thought of every little detail of how this society works and functions. And not just functions within the society, but also functions for his satirical, allegorical message. We are so completely and thoroughly immersed in spite of the strangeness of some of the elements. We almost, I feel like, buy in. Furthermore, everything seems to fit within this world. By the time we're 30 minutes in, we're in it and nothing really surprises us. I mean, I feel like nothing on that end of things in terms of the creativity of the things that happen and the world around Sam, none of that bumps for me. There's a lot of plot elements that bump for me, and we'll get to that. But I love the creation of the world, and it's so much detail. One detail that springs to mind is how the workers are watching Casablanca on their screens when they're not being supervised in Sam's office, as if their representation of Sam's dreams, their escape, whereas Sam's dreams are his escape. All those things are so well thought out. Alex, you like the movie, so I'll let you say something about the mise-en-scène.
It seemed like production design and shot design, performance and costuming were all so in sync. It just kind of like, in some ways, like felt like too much stuff packed in. This movie, as well as Gilliam's other film, 12 Monkeys, like the futuristic parts of that, both films feel like the set pieces are just overflowing and that there's like not even room for the audience in the scene. Like,
that's true. And Baz Luhrmann has a little bit of this too. Like it's almost over-directed to some degree. A lot of that works within the detail, within the mise-en-scène.
For sure.
It's when it gets to the story elements that it starts to feel overwhelming. Now, let me ask you, do you feel like all the stuff that was going on in the world, did it feel distracting to you?
It didn't. The thing that bothered me with it is, from a practical standpoint, it just seemed like all they had the opportunity to do is put in like ill-placed hard lighting.
Okay.
It was so jam-packed with just stuff.
That was
distracting to me.
The set limited the cinematographer. Is that what I'm basically getting at? So, Davey, that's really interesting. I don't recall noticing that, but I don't doubt that. That sounds about right to me, and really interesting.
Well, and Gilliam worked with this production designer on a number of other films, and this production designer, I looked him up after watching it, and I'd have to look up his name again, but he's done a lot of other really big immersive pieces. And I don't think the DP was as major a player as the PD was.
Yeah,
so
he probably was like, F this, we're working with these guys. I can't put my lights anywhere. Well, he needed to use the set more, maybe have more practicals mixed in there. But Davey, what do you think about anything related to that?
Well, I think there's a certain density to the set, and there's just a lot going on in every frame. I think what kind of struck me as being kind of interesting was how you've kind of got the futuristic elements and then the sort of antique offsets within the same shots. That's kind of neat.
that's Casablanca too. Like it's this postmodern thing, the idea of putting something in the future, but taking a lot of things that are old and putting them in it. Like Blade Runner does a lot of that with the architecture.
Star Wars does it too. Like the universe feels lived in, and that it has a history to it.
Yeah,
I'm sure that was an influence for this.
Yeah,
in that I felt like, oh, this is a world that's lived in, and like this like authoritarian regime didn't happen overnight. It's built up over time.
Absolutely. It almost felt like every little thing was thought out. You know, like that's what I, sort of wanted to get at. Everything functioned within this world in multiple ways, and I appreciated that. And I also think if this movie didn't exist, and I said to you the phrase Python-esque dystopia, this is the exact thing that you would come up with if you had to draw a picture of that phrase.
Wow. Yeah.
And also the detail of the design. I mean, like, I think Davey's favorite phrase, color palette, so perfectly and desperately monochromatic. I think that added a lot as well.
Yeah, it is, but I mean, there are accents and certain things that pop as a result. So it's kind of neat in that regard. Every frame I think is pretty well thought out.
Did you notice anything that Alex was talking about in terms of the lighting? Did the lighting? I think the color. There's a lot of visual stunningness. Did the lighting bother you at all, Davey? Did you know? I know Alex is an expert, but
well, it's funny. I was watching it during the daytime, and it was sort of like the reverse. Half the time I could see the movie okay, and then another time it would be too bright in the room, and I'd have to, back.
Did he say too bright? Did he say too bright, everybody? Sorry, Alex. That's a reference to a previous episode.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I mean he'll know. Lion in Winter. It's too bright.
First, I've seen The Lion in Winter. It's one of my favorite films.
It is the top 20 for me, but Davey felt it was too bright.
We're barbarians.
I mean, I love the movie. Don't get me wrong. I love the movie, but there are scenes in a dungeon. It shouldn't be glowing bright. Like it's stupid.
Bring it back to Brazil. So the one thing. So keeping with direction, I do want to talk about tone to some degree. I know obviously it's extremely intentional. Everything about this movie is so intentional. There's no accidents, and it's this broad comedy, but it's simultaneously frightening with its social commentary. But the injustices feel so goofy that it never feels threatening, and I feel like it fails ultimately to find that right balance. I mean, I feel like Gilliam still has one foot back in his Python days, and it's almost too much. The juxtaposition of what he's trying to do and these more, broad comedic elements just don't jive completely for me. It has some funny moments, but they undercut any potential impactful moments. And that leads to a lack of emotional engagement. I don't care, ultimately. I feel like we needed to care more. The dreams don't work at all for me. So I don't care about the main motivator for Sam. So guys, anything on tone?
Dream sequences were part of my issue as well, in that I didn't like that it ended with the dream sequence. That's like my big pet peeve in all like narrative content, is that you have a real ending, don't have it ending in a character's mind, because that's like a writer wrote themselves into a corner and didn't know where to go.
There's a very dark coda to that dream sequence, right? As I recall.
Yeah, in reference to what you were saying, like I'll bring up The Trial by Kafka again, and like what Joseph K is going through, the protagonist, there is a terror and an increasing threat of what's going to happen to him. I didn't feel like actual stakes for what, like, it just seemed like Sam Lowry is so like interconnected because of his mother and everything that like nothing real is ever going to happen to him. Like he's not just put in a bag and killed, like he's given it a chance to be interrogated. Like he kind of has this crucible moment where he can confess even though he's innocent and just make it all go away. Like he's given that choice. Yeah. Whereas Kay in The Trial is not. So tonally though, do you feel that, how does the juxtaposition, I mean, like I think clearly this is the intention, this comic satirical world that he's created. How do you feel about this tone? Is it working? You love the movie. Is it working for you? The tone? It doesn't sit well with me. Like I like the movie a lot and appreciate a lot about it. But in terms of what it stops it from being a favorite, I feel like it's that. Like I don't ever feel, as detailed as the world is, I don't care about Sam's journey, and I don't care about all the injustices, like because they're so silly to some degree. Yeah, I mean, I almost feel like I care more about the female lead, and like I can't even remember her name.
The actress is Kim Greist, but I don't remember the character name. No.
Yeah, I was more compelled by what was going on with her, and if had the whole film followed her story more rather than his, I would have found it more interesting.
Davey, tone.
I think that the silliness does sort of clash with the overall. There are certain points when he does manage to create a feeling of menace. Certainly the torture scene, there's a scene where he's in a bit of a jam and it looks like he's about to buy the farm. But there also, yeah, I agree that there's so much comedy interspersed in a lot of the scenes where it bumps a little bit. I also think that the dream sequences, I like the dream sequences visually, and I also kind of like the idea of his kind of knowing, where his dreams are and how he thinks about the female lead. But I think some of the editing there is a little odd, and I think they could have maybe front loaded some of that, because kind of jumping back and forth, it does create a problem with the tone. I can see how it kind of grate on you a little bit. I think that that's all by design, and he definitely wanted to have an uneven tone and just kind of keeps in with the rest of the film that it, just like I said, you have monochromatic sets with accents. He definitely wants inflection points, for better or for worse.
I don't know if he would want an uneven tone. I don't know if he's like, I want something uneven. I think he wanted to meld these two things, and it's the round peg into a square hole, or is it square peg into a round hole? I don't remember. But whatever it is, it wasn't fitting as neatly. It comes close, and there's some really great moments, but it didn't like fit perfectly for me. Like it didn't inspire me or excite me or have any emotional engagement. It had some cerebral engagement, which is all well and good. Do you have a rebuttal, Alex?
Yeah, I was just going to say one thing as we talk about it, I think about something that's really common through all of British like art, literature, and especially comedy, like up to the modern age, but even back to like medieval stuff, class, and like the distinction between being upper class and being common. And one of the themes in this film is that justice and experience is so divergent between a common person like the female lead and someone from the upper echelon like Lowry.
Yeah, so he's jumping on themes early, and we'll get to that. That's a big one among many.
I just felt like it could have been explored better. The commoner experience should have been further explored.
And we're about 5 minutes away from hopefully discussing themes in a little more detail. Okay. Davey hates doing it, so I make him like do it in detail. Davey, that'll give you a second to work on class as one of the themes. But one of the things direction-wise that also bothered me is I felt like the performances were a little uneven, specifically the two leads. Jonathan Pryce and Kim Greist, I thought were weak, whereas some of the supporting performances were much more successful. Now, Jonathan Pryce is a Tony-winning actor, very well respected. Does anybody know what he won his Tony for?
I do not. I mainly recognize him from Game of Thrones.
It was famously controversial. Davey, do you know? You were a little older.
I have no idea.
It's a musical.
West Side Story?
No, Miss Saigon. Jonathan Pryce famously won a Tony for playing an Asian character in the Broadway show Miss Saigon, the character of the engineer. And for a long time, Actors Equity had banned him from playing the role, and the show didn't open as a result, and then Actors Equity had to back down, and he wound up winning the Tony. Pryce is very good at the everyman portion of the film in the beginning, but I feel like he really struggles with Lowry's more histrionic moments. These are the moments that we really needed to believe. It's his transition. It's his journey. I needed him to get there, and he felt off to me. Davey, you look like you're nodding.
No, actually, I'm not. I liked him. I thought he pulled it off. I did see him as a hero in certain scenes. It's tough with the way the film was edited with the dream sequences. Maybe if you watch it again, see if how much of that maybe kind of plays into it rather than the performance, how it's put together. That may be more of an issue than the performance itself. To
clarify, I liked him 75% of the movie. It's when things starts to ratchet up, when he starts to like go after the girl, when he starts to act a little more crazy is when it bumped for me. And that's when I feel like I really needed him to be better. It's almost like he didn't understand exactly why he was doing what he was doing. He was doing what the director wanted, but he didn't really deep down get it. It's a theory. Alex?
That theory sounds pretty apt. It felt like a little bit, I'll go back to the class thing, just because it felt like a really proper guy that like is just terrified to like openly actually like freak out and deal with conflict. And so like in that way, maybe it's brilliant, but it's frustrating to watch a character be inhabited in that way. Like you want to see them like engage with the conflict like more directly and more personally at those big moments.
It's almost like he didn't seem committed to the more histrionic moments. Davey, you have more rebuttal, or you said your piece?
No, I think I'm good.
You never know. I thought I'd give him a chance. Additionally, Kim Greist, I feel like, offers nothing. Like zilch. Somebody here liked her. I don't remember which one did, but obviously, I feel like the character is written very flatly. But she also has no charisma to me. It's a really disappointment because she's the big motivator. Eventually, meet her. I feel like she gives us nothing, and I really don't care. So that's why the last act.
She plays two characters that are distinctly flat, but like not like each other at all.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't buy either one as a three-dimensional.
No,
and who's three-dimensional in a film like
But they weren't even consistent to each other that they could possibly be in any way interconnected.
Yeah.
One's her in a wig.
And that's partially the writing. Sometimes an actor can overcome writing with just being charming or charismatic.
I didn't feel any chemistry between her and...
Oh, not without a doubt.
It was just like, if this guy approached this girl in a bar, there's no way like she's even letting him buy her a drink.
Yeah, and I don't even want to approach her in her bar. That's how bored I am with Kim Greist. Davey, you must be the one that liked her. I can't remember.
Well, I did like her. I think that she does play two different characters, and I think that she kind of plays the quiet badass, and then on the other end the sexier object of his desires. But I also think that there was a bridge that needed to be built between the two roles that she was playing, and it just isn't in the film. Or in
the screenplay potentially.
Well, potentially, yeah, right. And I wonder if she was under directed in whether her role was kind of neglected, and it's just given Gilliam's recent comments, I just wonder if he just wasn't as interested in the female character.
I'd forgotten that point. And but Gilliam only has one performance that's ever been nominated for an Academy Award. Do you guys know what that is?
No.
Oh,
Brad Pitt in
Brad Pitt in 12 Monkeys. Very good. Very good.
I won a point.
Yes. Nobody ever answers my trivia questions. I got somebody. They got one.
I agree that I think she was probably under-directed, and it seemed like, as Davey said, she's like an objectified object of desire to the fantastical version of Jonathan Pryce's character.
I feel like I said that, but that's okay.
You both did, probably. But what I was going to say is that's never unpacked of like, hey, it's kind of messed up to like have someone be a one-dimensional object of desire and like have her be like, I'm a fully formed person. That's not cool. That would be a nice moment. And like there seemed to be like within the narrative of the story and with the narrative of Lowry, like he's never like called on his shit for like objectifying some fantasy woman.
And there's opportunities.
And there's all the old women trying to like be desirable objects and like how that's a big part of the universe. And like this younger, like short-haired, like badass, like grease monkey looking lady, like it's oddly enough named Grease, could really be the foil to be like, hey, like I reject that whole aspect of our society.
Her career went nowhere, so it could be Greist. It's Greist, I believe. So it could, I could be pronouncing it wrong, but I think that's funny. And more importantly, I'm the one who has called her objectified first. Davey said it second, just to be clear.
Do you feel like a big man?
I do. So I want to acknowledge we're running out of time because I want to get to the T word, Davey's favorite segment. But I do want to acknowledge this because as much as I didn't like the lead performances, I thought the supporting performances were pretty strong. I would just want to call out Catherine Hellman, Ian Holm, and Peter Vaughn playing Mr. Helpman as particularly noteworthy, who made very specific choices and really ran with them, and they really fit within the world. I mean, Lowry wasn't supposed to fit within the world, so my issues with him are otherwise. Yeah, Kim Greist, I don't know where, like she was totally in a different movie almost.
I wouldn't call it a movie.
Yeah, well, maybe she was on drugs. Anything on either those supporting performances or any of your own that you really liked?
I read up on the film a bit after watching it, and one of the things was that there was apparently a lot of conflict between De Niro and Gilliam on set, and that De Niro was over-researching everything and wanted to know, like, every little thing about how this machinery works. The fact that Gilliam he's like, yeah, look how, like, interesting and, like, developed this is. And when someone's like, tell me all about it, it kind of, like, called him on his shit to be like, hey, it's actually not as developed as you think it is. Like,
Just pretend.
And Robert De Niro, like, you're just kind of this like weird, quirky supporting character. And I know De Niro wanted to play Lowry, and I'm glad he didn't. Even though he's a fantastic actor, he's completely wrong for that role.
You never know. Like, he played that sort of a role in a film called Mad Dog and Glory, I think from director John McTiernan, 93, I want to say. Davey, anything on supporting performances before I make a quick overview about the writing?
I did like De Niro's role, and I'm trying to think of how he would do as Lowry, and I don't know how he would do, but I would like to see that film.
That would make Lowry such a different character if De Niro was playing him.
Okay. Very cool. So real quick about, we already talked about in the writing how the Dream Girl subplot mostly didn't work. I mean, like, I understand the crush, but once they meet in the real world, the lengths to which he goes are extreme. Like, initially he seems infatuated, and that's fine, but he never feels obsessed enough to do the things that he does. And so that character pivot doesn't work for me, and I feel like the film really loses steam once they connect. Does anybody have anything on that briefly?
I think if he had started trying to like build that suit of armor, or like get a fantastical sword, or like seek out a samurai like in his actual reality, that would have sold like the obsession more.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, like, it would have
him trying to bring his dream to life.
It would have suggested he was a little bit off. So when he starts acting off and more off, we would have bought it more, because I didn't buy it.
I would have front loaded the dream sequences more and really just established the obsession. I think that might have kind of set that tone a little better.
Again, the problems we're finding are just sort of basic storytelling elements that are lacking. And so the other issue that I have is the allegory, and this will lead into the T word. And one of the writers, by the way, is Tom Stoppard. It almost felt like they had so much they wanted to say, they seemed distracted from the heart of the movie. Do you guys have anything on that?
Yeah, I think they wanted to create a world and make a bunch of social points. And like what they needed to do is just tell Sam's story.
At least tell Sam's stories first and then look at the social points, as opposed to the other way around. Because this movie seems, and this will lead, let's just start the T word now. So this is the T word, and the T word, Alex, because I don't think you've been here since we started this, is themes. Davey hates talking about themes, so now it's a big deal when we do it, because we do it every time. That's how we roll. This movie seems to condemn everything. The only thing that it seems to admire is revolution, though not necessarily anarchy. And in that sense, it's a very pessimistic movie, and that makes it slightly less enjoyable to me. And furthermore, it covers so much ground, it's simultaneously impressive, but also overwhelming. Here's just some of the lists of some of the things that it seems to condemn. Capitalism, communism, socialism, consumerism, classism, racism, terrorism, narcissism, religion, technology, and interconnectivity. Interconnectivity, I mean, it foretells the danger of being overly connected by what we now know as the internet, and how that can be abused by those in power. And it also suggests that as we become supposedly further connected, we kind of grow more apart. And those are just a handful of things that the movie covers. Class was the one thing that you picked out, Alex. Have I missed anything?
Yeah, I'll say, like, it seemed like it condemned all of those things and more, and the only thing it lauded was objectification of women. That would make everything better. If you just stop all this other stuff and just, like, put women on a pedestal.
The only ism it doesn't condemn is misogynism. Misogyny. Misogynism is not a thing.
Yeah.
Misogyny. It doesn't condemn misogyny at all, or any issue between the genders. So that's a really good point. It fails in that regard for all that it wanted to cover. Is it too much?
I think it could have been more focused. I would have liked a little more of, like, how did this world come to be and what used to be before it. And
I love that idea. I love that idea. You get hints along the way that our modern world led to this. But I mean, it would have been interesting to see a bridge.
Yeah, and it's also like, what do the terrorists want? Like, I understand they don't like what's going on, but what do they want instead?
Freedom, I guess, something along those lines.
But freedom is so vague. Like,
no, you're right.
People who live in like a fascist state who think that that's freedom. It's
dead right.
Completely subjective.
It's kind of a much safer 1984 bent. It's definitely condemning bureaucracy, and I think that I think liberals and conservatives can fight over the sort of the breadth of government, but I think that pretty much uniformly everybody hates the depth of it. There's so much paperwork and red tape, whenever you're trying to get anything done. It's not a particularly controversial stand.
As a Washingtonian, I'll say that I think that compulsion comes from a place of people being too ignorant and dumb to understand how complex it is to run a nation state. I hate that there's forms. Environmental impact report. That's stupid. You're really dumb and don't understand how anything works.
So, Davey, I listed a bunch of things that the movie incorporates. What was your takeaway when you watched it from a social commentary point of view?
Government run amok.
Another Orwellian, almost Animal Farm kind of, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely kind of thing?
Maybe, yeah, to an extent, but I think more just, the difficulty of getting anything done. I obviously there's certainly you had the government murdering people, so I guess it is ultimately a commentary on a sort of just a hard communism / fascism.
I mean, even capitalism and consumerism, I think, are really lampooned a lot.
I felt like it was more existentialist and absurdist in the vein of like Camus or Kafka than it was like Orwell.
I feel Orwell a lot through this, not just in terms of the themes, but also
I'm sure he was a big reference and an influence on it. It
sounds like both of you guys, the main takeaway was the lampooning of bureaucracy.
Yes.
But how do you guys think about this concept that I'm sort of bringing it to, the modern age, and it's sort of foretelling the internet to some degree, and the dangers of being over-connected by people, and how the government can abuse that. I mean, like between the tubing and all those other things, that really landed for me in a prescient way. Do we have anything on that?
Because the internet is a series of tubes.
Yeah, it technically, in a way, is. But I mean, the point is, all these people are connected in a way they hadn't been before, and the government uses that and spies on their people. They have their ways because everything is connected to each other. In this case, via this sort of absurdist tubing kind of thing. This internet is virtually that, and it is something that the government has been accused of utilizing to supervise us and market to us and so forth and so on. I see a lot of that warning in this movie. Am I just reading too much into it, Davey?
I don't think so. It's kind of amazing now that I think about it. In 1985, for them to be, getting into the computer and pulling up all this information, and the idea that they have all this information at their fingertips, and then just a fly in the ointment can make one small mistake and get somebody killed. It does sort of key in right away on the dangers of that.
Alex, rebuttal?
I agree with him. Sounds pretty dead on.
Wow, Alex usually has more to say than that. So there's so much going on in this movie. It's kind of impressive how much it tries to cover. Now, but at the same time, for all that our discussion of it, like Alex came out starting saying he loved it. I was sort of in between. Davey was confused. Davey, do you want to say more about your confusion?
I guess I followed it okay. I mean, the ending, it's just, basically there's two endings and you just kind of pick the one you like. That's a little odd to me.
Lazy.
I'm probably complaining more about the movie than I should, because I do ultimately like it.
That's what I was sort of getting at, is we said some nice things mostly, but a lot of what the show has been complaining about it. Initially, I thought I liked it in the middle, but now I'm wondering if I liked it the least. It's hard to tell with Davey. Is this movie, for all our complaints and all the holes that we just poked through it, is it overrated?
I have no sense of how it's rated, so
it's rated as a sort of satirical sci-fi masterpiece.
I mean, I think on an aesthetic level, it is.
Yeah.
Other than the cinematography.
On an aesthetic level, but do you want to rewatch it? Like, you love it, you said, Alex. Like, how soon do you want to rewatch it?
I thought it was great and so immersive, and they took a lot of risks and pushed the limits of the equivalent in technology at the time to do certain things cinematically that I was really impressed with. I thought the costume design really had this it kind of felt like a comedic Blade Runner, and then it had this classic 40s noir look, but also futuristic wildness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I almost like it less just after talking about it with you guys. And there are all these qualities to it. Maybe the best thing to say, I'm trying to sum it up to some degree. It's an extremely flawed, good film. Is that a
fun ride?
I'd say it's a fun ride. That kind of sells it a bit short. Fun ride is usually something I say about a film that's a little...
You said it about Rampage.
Right, yes.
I'll also say I don't think Brazil is as deep as it thinks it is.
That is sort of what I was trying to drive at.
And
So that sort of sums it up for me. Yeah.
To me, it seems like someone who is feigning intellectualism would laud this film in order to like make themselves seem smarter than they are. Kind of like someone saying Radiohead's a good band.
Oh, whoa!
That's fine.
But feigning intellectualism, that's like Davy's middle name, so that's kind of.
Let me draw a very. I mean, I like a lot of the things you say, but I need to be not a part of that Radiohead.
You just like this.
Wow. You know what I will say about Brazil is I'd like to see it in the theater.
Is flawed a fair word?
Yeah, but as Davey said, it's a cinematic experience for sure.
Okay, yeah, and I did see it in the theater, as I mentioned, with at the Academy screening place with Katherine Hellman. All right, so guys, it's time for the Classic Movie Showdown. Here we go. Movies go head-to-head in an NCAA bracket style kind of situation. We do this every classic episode, and we got all kinds of brackets. We got one for each decade, 30s, 40s, 50s. We got genre brackets. We got the best picture brackets of all the best picture winners. The AFI, Hollywood Reporter bracket, lots of different ones. We'll see what's coming up shortly, but before we do, Davey's going to explain it to you with these rules. Davey, explain the brackets to these lovely people.
Alrighty. Seating criteria varies from bracket to bracket. Films are shown at JB-hosted screenings, and they need to be 15 years or older. That would be from the year 2003 or earlier. Voters are eligible if they see both films within a 12-month period. Voters must see both films in JB's presence. JB is ineligible to vote unless the vote counts. He can break ties.
All right. So, Alex, you've been to my screening, so this is pretty clear to you, right? The bracket situation?
Yeah.
These votes do happen in my screening, so the vote has already occurred. So that's but I will give these guys a chance to opine before I reveal the winner. So this time we're doing for the first time in the show. We've done genre brackets before. We did musical bracket once. We did Western brackets. It is time for us for the first time to do the sci-fi bracket, science fiction films bracket for the first time in the show. And Brazil is a 3 seed. A fairly high seed. Brazil is a 3 seed in this bracket. Davey, which means it goes up against a?
14.
14. 3 versus 14. So that means, ladies and gentlemen, Brazil will go up against one of our 1966 films, Fantastic Voyage. We get to revisit 1966 a little bit with this film from director Richard Fleischer, which, do you guys know the story of Fantastic Voyage?
I mean, I've seen Inner Space.
It's a very similar story where they. Alex, did you watch it for this? Did you get a chance?
I wasn't able to.
I didn't think so. It was worth a shot. But they basically shrink down and then get inserted into a person's body to save someone from like a brain disease. Their voyage is going through the human body in a little miniature.
It's been parodied a million times.
That is correct, but it's Fantastic Voyage. So we watched it as part of our 1966 project, and I had people over. And since it went up against Brazil, I screened Brazil, and then we had a vote. And Alex hasn't seen it, and Davey, you've only seen Inner Space.
Right.
Davey refused to watch it, ladies and gentlemen.
Didn't Isaac Asimov write the novel?
He wrote the novelization. That is correct. He did not have anything to do with the screenplay, and he also tried to take advantage of the success by writing a sequel comic book called Fantastic Voyage 2, which had really nothing to do with the original whatsoever. It takes place in the Soviet Union and is really sort of unrelated. The Fantastic Voyage has come up once on the show before because we talked about actor Donald Pleasance in our review of Will Penny, which is our second or third most successful episode ever. Do you remember Donald Pleasance?
Yeah.
He was the bad guy in Will Penny, and we had a lot to say about his performance, so I made a reference to his equally weak performance in Fantastic Voyage. These guys haven't seen Fantastic Voyage, so they can't vote. So I guess it's just time to reveal the winner. And the winner of this sci-fi bracket is, ladies and gentlemen, Brazil does win. The 3 seed, the higher seed moves on. And it was a closer vote than you might think. There are a lot of people that love the kitsch factor of Fantastic Voyage. I used to love it as a kid, and I still think the idea is awesome. I was so looking forward to rewatching it for the 1966 project, and I saved it for the end and had people over. It was like a thing, but I found it super hokey and a major disappointment ultimately, and a very bad performance by Donald Pleasance. Once again, not to keep knocking on Donald Pleasance, we just happen to keep picking on his bad performances, because he's got some good ones out there. Guys, any reactions to this? I guess no surprise.
I would have been really surprised. Fantastic Voyage beat Brazil.
Do you guys have any curiosity to see Fantastic Voyage?
Yeah, I do.
Slightly. I will say this: I do enjoy the song "Fantastic Voyage" more than I enjoyed the song "Brazil."
All right, little Lakeside Funk reference.
Much better than Radiohead, I imagine.
Absolutely.
Davey?
Yes, in the brackets, Lakeside wins over Radiohead for better band.
And over the song Brazil, it seems. So there you go. Davey, you were saying you would be interested in seeing Fantastic Voyage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would.
All right, because that's one of our 1966 films that you could have watched for that project when you only watched 5 films.
Only 5.
There were five really good films. I don't remember which 5 they were, but they were.
They were Man for All Seasons, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, The Professionals, The Fortune Cookie, and Alfie.
Alfie, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
There you go. It's funny because every film he watched from 1966 he liked, but he only watched 5 of them.
It's perfect the way it is. Why would I?
Why would you want to mess with that? Fantastic Voyage could ruin all that. All right, guys. Closing thoughts. Anything? Let's start with Davey.
I think we were kind of tough on it in this episode. I think it made it more interesting, but maybe it wasn't completely fair either.
I wasn't necessarily planning on that. I'm not sure it held up under scrutiny to some degree. I think might be part of it as well.
Yeah.
Alex, closing thoughts?
Just from my experience with Gilliam's other films, I don't think they're meant for the kind of scrutiny that we were like bashing it over.
Maybe, but you know what? A film that I'll stand by is I might be his next film, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. I think is outstanding, and it's come up on the show a couple times in the past.
Yeah, I just real quick would like to say I feel like I was a little hard on Roger Pratt, cinematographer. I think he did amazing shot design, and I just definitely want to shout out to Norman Garwood, production designer, and the costume designer James Atchison. That I thought their work was incredible on Brazil.
Shout it out by name.
Yeah.
Davey concurs. And tonight, through Fantastic Voyage, we revisited one of our years, 1966. For the next classic, we'll get to revisit 1990 with a film that didn't get mentioned at all in our 1990 in review, which came 2 years ago, 3 years ago at this point, 2.5 years ago. But I should have mentioned this movie in the top 5 I did in episode 43.4. So you got to look episode 43.4 and see what I'm talking about. I missed this one. And it's a movie from 1990, and I should have mentioned it in that top 5, and that's your clue. So you got to dig up 43.4, watch it to figure out what this movie could be from 1990. Next up, however, is we have our next sound off. We're going to have Jim back, and we're going to do a special announcement that might have something to do with Alex here. No more hints. We have a special announcement. Jim and I will recast the films that we wanted to remake as a part of our 1942 experiment. And I will be counting down the top 5 films from female directors. And that's all coming up on the Sound Off this Tuesday, May 29th. We will see you all then. In the meantime, this meeting of the No Name Cinema Society is adjourned.